Hello, family. How are you? I hope you are doing well. I hope you are having a great Sunday and your weekend was good. As always, I'm hoping for the best that you are just enjoying this still wonderful weather that we have going on. I'm just so grateful. I can really do without the snow, to be honest. But if it must come, I'm prepared. I had a wonderful week. A lot going on, a lot of good stuff going on. And so last week I had to kind of take a break. I had to attend to a family member that wasn't feeling too well, and I wanted to make sure that I was there for them. And so, to God be the glory, I'm back here this week to talk about our what is my role. But you know what? I want to step back from the identity series as far as helping or teaching your child about their identity. And I actually wanted to talk about you as a parent, me as a parent, any parent. Um, and tonight's discussion, honestly, is is sort of an emotional discussion for me because I'm going to be completely transparent. It is my hope that you hear my heart and that somewhere in there you maybe it rings true for you, or it maybe makes you aware of where you are, but most importantly who you are. So I was starting the series on what is my role as a parent, because I feel like from a person who became a mom, young, I had really no clue, and I shared that. So you can look at the past episodes of that to just hear a little bit of my story in regards to that. But I thought it was really important to actually pivot today and talk about who are you. When someone asked me that question a long time ago, my answer honestly was, "Oh, I'm a mom. I'm working. Typical response you might give if you don't know who you are." And I didn't. And so I didn't realize that I never really answered the question. It wouldn't be until years later, as I, would be attending different trainings for work. And, they have you do those icebreaker activities or exercises to kind of get to know the person that you're in training with, or to start the conversation or the training off on a particular foot. And I went through a couple of those trainings. And even during that time, my responses were very similar. I'm a single mom, I'm working, and I'm trying to go to school, I'm a student, and things like that. But I couldn't really answer the question because I really didn't know. And so as I continued my journey in life, God began to really reveal to me who I was, but I didn't want to really believe it. After my mom had passed, it's like my whole world turned upside down. My mom was everything to me. She was my rock. Um, she really supported, loved, and encouraged. And so my daughter was very young. She was still like a toddler. And I lost my mom, but she transitioned. It's in the body of Christ, when someone transitioned, you're supposed to really celebrate that fact, because you know the idea is that they have finished their earthly work, and now they are in the arms of God, and they are now celebrating with the Lord. And so that's I mean, that's a great way to look at it because it gives you like hope that beyond this life there is, all of God's glory and goodness that we get to embrace. But when she transitioned, I celebrated in a sense, but I didn't realize how much it impacted me. I think, it hit me harder um at night, right? And over the course of time, I just became kind of withdrawn, depressed, as you might imagine. I struggled because I didn't know who I was, right? And so I can be honest to say that when I got off the phone and the doctor called me first, I kind of knew in my spirit the hospital was going to call me first, and they called me first to say that my mom had transitioned. It was like three something in the morning, and I knew it was coming. We were prepared for it because they had already told us. And at that time, I didn't know about really speaking in faith and things like that. So to me, this was, you know, gonna happen. But my mom had peace about it because she told us, she's like, I'm gonna die on Wednesday. And so we said, Mom, you're not gonna die, it's gonna be okay. You're feeling like that now, but you know, you're gonna be okay. So Wednesday came and gone. Wednesday came and went on, and we were like, "See, Mom, you're still here." However, the following week, Wednesday, she transitioned, and so we were kind of prepared. We kind of knew it was going to happen, and of course, like when you really love someone, you don't want it to happen, but you have to respect their wishes, and so it happened. They called me. My daughter was asleep. It was wee hours in the morning, and I remember distinctively two things that happened. And Lord brought this to my remembrance. I believe He brought it, to my remembrance tonight because I'm talking about who are you. Two things happened that I remember distinctively. One, my house was super quiet because it was just me and my daughter. But one thing happened was I immediately felt like what would be like a cape of some sort fall on my shoulders. And I felt the wind of it. Like somebody literally like was above me and just dropped like a coat or something on me and I felt it. And even being a brand new believer and really starting my journey with the Lord, I knew what that meant. I knew that the mantle that was on my mother's life had now been transferred to me. And I remember saying to the Lord, Lord, I can't do this. I can't do it. And I knew that call, what that call was, as far as what my mom was and who she was. She was a pastor. She walked in her calling, but not fully. I don't believe fully she walked in it completely because she just didn't know. And well, she probably knew, but I think she was afraid to really do it. And so when that fell on me, I said, Lord, I can't do this alone. I can't do this. Now I didn't know God's plan. And so that was my first response. The second thing that happened was I felt like, okay, now whoever I'm supposed to be, I can be that person. For some reason, I felt some freedom. Like, okay, now I can be this person. And I had no clue. I was like, this is sort of odd. I thought I was like, maybe I'm bugging, I'm in grief. You think all these things. But I didn't know. And it was all in God's plan because in my mind, I just wanted to kind of figure out how am I going to now live life without her? How am I going to go on? And so, just looking back to that, it was hard. Um, And so I went on, through life, as a mom, never really knowing that. And I didn't realize it up until maybe, 5 years ago or so. I really didn't realize how that impacted me in my parenting because I realized that I think I had just become shut off. I had just become like closed off, emotionally unavailable. And I love my daughter. I mean, I would give my life, do everything and anything, but it was, I guess, that hurt and that pain, that grief. Um, I'm gonna be honest, I was angry with God because I said, God, my mother cried out to you. Um, I was praying that she would get better. But again, I didn't know. I didn't know, that, sometimes it's not the way we would think. It would not end, excuse me, the way we would think all the time or how we would think or how we would want. And so I had my feelings about it. And I love the Lord. I just didn't understand. I think in my grief and my anger, I just was like, I don't get it. I've always known my mother to serve you, so why couldn't you honor this prayer? So I think I went back and forth with that within myself for years. And I remember having a conversation with my daughter. I think this was like one of the first conversations we had, and it was years ago. She's like well into a teenager. She might even have been like late teens. I think she was like late teens when we were just having a discussion. And she told me, she was like, Mommy, the Lord told me, that you gave me what you could, right? What you were capable of at that time. Because I always felt like, when things are off or when things may not be right with you and your kids. And I just felt, I was like, you know, I love you, those things. And she said, Yeah, Mom. She's like, I know. But she began to tell me how the Lord began to minister to her about me, that emotionally, my capacity. And I'm saying, I know now that, because of my mom's transitioning and never really dealing with it, never even knowing that you were supposed to deal with grief, that you were supposed to process any kind of traumatic event. I didn't know that. But she told me, she was like, Mom, the Lord told me that that's what you can do, that, making the house comfortable and, cooking and whatever was your capacity. But the emotional connection was lacking. I didn't have the capacity to connect with my daughter because I wasn't able to really process what had happened with my mom. And I think it it made it more intense because of the fact of that I felt like my mom didn't want to go, but she became at peace with it because she was ready. She realized, okay, I'm just ready now. I'm not going to fight it anymore. And so all of that, on top of which, dealing with my daughter's father and our relationship just really being just totally like over with and done, and just dealing with that transition and going back and forth with him on different things and trying to, manage that and process that, it just was a lot. And so, you know, I remember talking and us having this conversation and she telling me that. And I remember thinking, my God, how, the Lord is so good because in my weakness, he was literally made strong because he was able to give her what I wasn't when I was the most emotionally vulnerable. And so I wanted to really talk about who are you because I didn't realize that in answering that question authentically and honestly, first with myself and in prayer with the Lord, that it would just open up, you know, um, so much, and it would allow God in to do the work of healing and restoration. So I'm saying this to you today. You may love your children. You may really, really love your kids. I mean, like you would do anything for them, and that's awesome. But if you're not emotionally connecting with your children, if they don't feel love and connection and warmth, then you have to start now doing this work to find out, hey, what's really going on? Um, and you really need to talk with your kids because there is something called attachment theory. I don't want to get too much into the psychological because that's my field. My degree is in psychology, and you know I learned a lot through that. But being able to take my personal experiences and see how, and comparing it to what I learned was very interesting, and that was another level of revelation for me. But being able to emotionally connect with your children and for them to feel love and for them to know that you love them is the epitome of being a good parent, a great parent. Um, Kids are very resilient. There's a lot that they can go through, but if they know that they have you and that you love them no matter what, my God, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. And although they grow up and they get their own friends and they move on with life and so forth, they always know that you're home. My mother was home for me. So, quite naturally, when she transitioned, I felt like I didn't have a home. But I knew that in God's infinite love and wisdom, He was my home and He wanted me to learn how to make Him my home. That was what He wanted because He knew when I was born when my mother was going to transition. He knew when I was little when she was going to transition. But I have to say that I my journey and who I was started that day. Learning who I was, learning how much I'm loved and wanted, and how much God cares started that day. And so I just want to encourage you. We're going to continue this conversation because I feel like there's so much more that I want to add. Today was my day to be a little emotional and to really share my story because I miss my mom and I love her dearly. But I'm in a very different place. And I cry now because I realize how much God loves me now. And I know and I understand. And I know that it started me on a journey of knowing who I am, but also knowing, how to really love my daughter and how to embrace her in the way that God does. Being that example of God's love in the earth for her, the way my mother was for me. My mother, was it for me. I think a lot of people could probably say that, say, yeah, my mother was it, she did her thing. My dad is great. He was there, but my mother was like it was just something with her. I think I identified with her on so many levels, and I'm a lot like her. Very nurturing and caring, a pastor's heart, for sure. And so I just want to encourage you today. I really want you to excuse me. I really want you to really think about this question. Who are you? I'm going to share more next week, about how I learned and the way in which the Lord began to reveal to me who I was. And in that revelation, I realized I needed God more and more in my life. I mean, like crazy. I mean, like, okay, every day need you for real, for real. Because I could not do what He called me to do, number one, to be a mom, right? Without having that connection, relationship with Him in the right way. Because, see, you can be so hurt and broken and not even let God in. You may not even know that you're not allowing God in. Sometimes, and I want to say this, sometimes, we can be so guarded. We can be that way towards God. We can be that way towards our children. And that's not good because our children are our children. They're not trying to hurt us. They're not trying to manipulate or use us. They they may do little things to try to get what they want. Like who hasn't, right? Butter up to mommy to get, extra candy and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the kind of guarded where you feel like, okay, I'm in danger or someone's trying to do harm, right? God is not in that business either. But things happen in life and you can shut down. And when you shut down emotionally, become emotionally unavailable, you know, then you block out a lot of times what God has for you. God is a gentleman. He's not going to force himself. He's not going to manipulate you. He's not going to try to, swindle you. He's going to come knocking. I think there's a Bible verse that says, I stand at the door and knock. He's going to come and he's going to knock. It's about you allowing God in those areas to be healed, to receive wholeness, and whatever else it is that's there, so that you could be the best for yourself, right? But you could be the best parent for your children, and, you know, having that relationship with them, that's a solid relationship because it's that relationship, honestly, in my personal opinion, that keeps kids out of certain situations because they have that connection and attachment. It helps to deter a lot of things that teenagers naturally become curious about and maybe engage in, right? But they may engage in some things to a point or not at all. Everyone is different. But it is that connection with the parent that keeps them from going too far sometimes, I think. And so we have to begin to talk about this conversation. Who are you? And next week, I want to continue this conversation. I just wanted to start it off. And I wanted you to really start thinking about that, really going and doing that inward reflection, asking the Lord to bring things to the surface for you, when you're ready, of course. And the Lord, like I said, He knows when you're ready. You can pray that, and it might be a couple of days, weeks, or even months, or maybe even years. You're like, Lord, I've been asking you because He knows you're not ready, right? He knows when you're ready. And when you're ready, I guarantee you, it's gonna happen right at that time, and you're gonna say, oh my God, I didn't know. Or oh my God, Lord, you're showing me this. And at that moment, that's when you can say, Lord, I need you because I wasn't even aware. I didn't even know, right? And so just think about that. And next week, I'll be back here at 8 o'clock. And I will continue this discussion. Who are you? Just think about that. Who are you? And I would encourage you to write it down or write what comes to mind first. And as you're writing, just do it where you can write freely, like where you can just, whatever comes up in your heart, whatever pops up in your mind. And there's going to be a point where you're going to have to actually sit with that. You're going to have to actually sit in those feelings of whatever it is that God is bringing to the surface. And that can be a little hard. It can very well be challenging, but it needs to be done for your sake, for the sake of your child or your children. Do the work, become who you need to become. And that, again, is a process of time, right? Um, but more importantly, allow God to not only show you, but allow Him in those areas to begin to start the healing process, the restoration process. Look, I'm so thankful that you joined me. I hope that you have a great week. To all those who are veterans, I salute you. I appreciate you. I am grateful for your service. And we thank God for you. And I pray God's divine protection over you. Have a great week.